Okay, my Virpil came in, so I thought I'd take a look at the Thrustmaster insides of this throttle. I just took the back plate off and I wanted to look at this wiring. It's not necessarily the greatest wiring. I expected much thinner, actually. I expected more of this kind of wiring here as opposed to this. This is a little thicker. From what I understand, the really thin stuff is up in for this paddle, and this is what's failing on this piece right here, and it is noticeably bad. The one thing that is been pointed out for the throttle in particular is the fact that it slides on these rails, so it just slides forward and backward as opposed to pivoting. And this gets a little tough to push sometimes. Like it wants to hang up all the time. Like you probably have to relube this thing fairly frequently or something. I don't know. Probably not going to be using this thing much after today. So anyway, that's what the inside of this looks like. And this is what the wiring looks like. So we're going to move on to just a brief description of I want to go over this one again. I want to go over the VKB, and then I want to show the powerhouse that is the Virpil. Okay, in order to recap on this thing here, I don't know if you can see these buttons in particular, but they just feel kind of cheap. I mean, they feel okay, but they definitely feel not the greatest. This paddle thing doesn't feel bad, but it's quit working. Like, I've had problems going both directions now. So if I push this way, it maybe doesn't go, maybe it pushes it twice. Like if I just push it, sometimes it doesn't do anything. Sometimes it'll jump over twice. Pushing this one, now starting to jump multiple times. So whatever is in here, the wiring, the soldering, whatever problem this has is getting worse. I mentioned the sliding of this. You have to kind of push down a little bit to make this go forward because it doesn't want to move. You know what I mean? And there should be some pushback of the throttle. You don't want it to just, you know, tap it and it slides all the way forward. But this thing is a bit stiff, and I don't know, it just, sliding is not a good idea. This should pivot, but, you know, again, it is what it is. We bring this stick back out. The nice thing about this is this piece comes off here, and this piece comes off here. There's a switch on the bottom for right and left, so you can actually reverse this to here and make it a left-handed stick. Of course, it's got the little throttle on here and some buttons and stuff. The buttons don't feel bad. The plastic feels, both this and the throttle, the plastic feels okay. It's not like it's, you know. The problem I have with this is, again, the mechanical piece, this ball that rolls around down here. I don't know if you can, it's not really doing it right now, but when this moves around, you can hear it creaking. And this isn't torquing it to where you're picking it up. This is just straight, you know, pushing off to one side or the other, and it will make noise. Again, I think this thing needs to be lubed up periodically or something. I'm not sure. There's probably some maintenance that needs done on this. And for the price, I don't think it's worth the maintenance. I mean, this was $130, and I got basically $1 an hour out of the thing, and then it broke. Both are suffering issues. This one is having issues with the twist, like it just randomly turns the ship this way, and if you tap it, ship starts going back to normal. Like the yaw is broken in it or something, I'm not sure. We then move on to this. This is the VKB, and it is the Gladiator. Light probably not coming through so well. It's the VKB Gladiator. It's got a safety switch up here. And a plethora of buttons. This thing here, I don't like this throttle. It's serviceable. I mean, the buttons on this are really nice. I would recommend this more than the Thrustmaster any day. This is 90 bucks, something like that. Yeah, the throttle kind of sucks a little bit, but is it any different than this throttle? No. You've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 buttons over here. And then this has 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 buttons. Plus these up here, which this one's got a few buttons up at the top that you miss, you lose out on. Build quality on this is really good. I'm not going to take it apart. Maybe I will. There's 4 screws. Hang on. So as you can see, this uses kind of the same wiring that the other one does. Looks to be about the same gauge. I don't know, Thrustmaster must just do a worse job at soldering or something. I'm not sure. So that was the inside. This is a nice thick chunk of plastic. There's a nice metal plate underneath this. The stick feels pretty decent actually. For me, it's good in the hand. No issues with this one at all. I really like this stick. A nice yaw and everything. So, let's see what the Virpil looks like. Now, I thought about doing a full unboxing for this, but I took all the boring parts out. This is the stick. This is the Warbird base. You can see that it's got just a ton of buttons to it. There is a trigger here. This flips down to a trigger. Probably should do this on the other direction. Alright, we've got that thing out of the light, so this will be easier to see now. The light's coming from this way instead of looking into it. But anyway, first thing you'll see is that there's a side butt hat here. This flips up, so this trigger is, there's a trigger there that flips up, there's a trigger there, there's a handbrake. This pedestal slides up, so if you have smaller hands, it actually pushes your palm up, so when you grip the thing, it sits up higher. There's a hat here, there's a button there, and a few more hats and a button. The base, yeah, this is like steel. That's metal. That's a nice rubber ring. The cheap part on this is their connector, and for some reason, from what I understand, they used the connector that the Warthog uses, which is a piece of crap. So instead of putting some nice pins in it, it's got some very delicate ones that you think you're going to break when you put in. Kind of wish that it is stout as everything else is. I mean, this plastic feels really good. As much as they made everything else on this, I wish they would have made the rest, you know, the connector good. But anyway, this thing is nice. This is a very substantial base. I mean, very substantial. So if we look into this, I can't do two things at once, but you'll notice that there's a cam down here that's replaceable somehow. There's some various springs and things that you can switch out in this mechanical device. Not very much wiring, and the wiring looks really good actually. But there's some parts to replace in here, and hang on, I've got a kit for that too. So here's the fun kit you get with this thing. There's an extra pad rest for your palm. It's smaller than the other one, so I won't be using that. There's some different tensioning springs or extras, not sure. And then there's the different cams that you can put into it. I think from what I saw, they have different curves to them. So like some are easier to move in the beginning and harder at the end, or I think what they defaulted is the middle. And then there's another variant that I can't remember. I don't know if it's easier at the beginning and harder, or harder in the beginning and easier in the end, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not sure. The middle of the road is what's in this thing. These are the others, and they said they recommended switching them out and trying them, but I have yet to plug this thing in, so I haven't even tried it yet. I was watching the movie. Now, the reason I wanted this entire setup was because of this bad boy right there. I mean, look at this thing. This is a piece of work here. Oh my God, at the amount of buttons that this thing has. I mean, there's a dial with a detent, a button, a button, a button, a hat, a hat, a hat, a button, a hat. This locks in here, and then you can move these independently if you have left and right thrust. You can also lock this in, and then the whole thing moves together. You hear that click right there? That is a detent for the throttle, and you notice that the throttle is pivoting back and forth. Given that Star Citizen has now gone to this type where you push backwards to go backwards and push forwards to go forwards, I may try that with Elite, because now I have a detent to know where the stop zone is, and a ton of buttons. But that's not it. I mean, this thing is heavy. I don't know how much it weighs, but that's, again, solid steel, nice steel base. So here we've got a slider. We've got the old self-destruct button here. We've got these flip forward and backwards. These are momentary contactors. Slug of buttons here. This is cool. These have detents here. These stop. So these go down to there at this point, and they go up to here at this point. And then they stop in the middle. They do not press down. These, however, are 360-degree turns. You just keep turning. They also push down. Mode button I've seen people use for lights. Apparently this thing has some lights in it. Button that you're not supposed to be easily pressing on. Yeah, I am very, very extremely impressed with this thing. This has a great feel to it. Packaging and shipping wise, I almost did an unboxing, but I thought, nah, I'll just take it all out and show it. The boxes themselves, there's the box that this stuff comes in with a good set of padding on it, and the base and the stick came in 2 separate boxes. So this was 1, 2, 3 different boxes here. And each box was a box in a box. So there was the box with the unit, whichever unit it was, some padding, and then that box was closed up and then put into another box, and then all 3 boxes were put into a bigger box so that it all came in one. I saw a video about some past shipments where they would just tape the 3 boxes together and hope it shipped through. Apparently they've learned that lesson, and now they package all of it at once. The packaging was phenomenal. There's no damage that I can see on this at all. And everything just feels superb quality on this. It kind of has a homemade feel in a way, but a really high quality homemade feel. Like, say, the VKB and the Thrustmaster both feel a bit more off a machine. This feels more like somebody actually cared and built it by hand. And I think that's what they do, is they build all these. But anyway, getting ready to go plug it in and try it out. We'll see how it works.